And the more trauma, the better. Except the next day, people get forgotten. And then it takes a long time, and then sometimes people they get courage after a year or 2 or 30 to knock on the door of people like me and say, I am desperate. Can you help me?
Hello, everyone. We've got a fantastic episode for you today featuring a true pioneer in the field of trauma and healing, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. If you're passionate about psychology, therapy, or just curious about how trauma impacts both the mind and body, you're in for a treat. Dr. van der Kolk has been the medical director of the Trauma Center in Boston for the past 30 years and is a past president of the International Society for Traumatic Stress Studies. Although he identifies primarily as a clinician, he has published well over 100 peer-reviewed scientific articles on various aspects of trauma, including the use of yoga and neurofeedback in the treatment of PTSD. His groundbreaking book, The Body Keeps the Score, has reshaped how we think about trauma and its effects. It's a must-read that has enlightened countless people about the complexities of trauma and the path to healing. In this video, we'll dive into some of his most influential theories and practical insights. And here's the exciting part. You'll discover not just how trauma changes your brain, but how it could be affecting your daily life in ways you might not even realize. Whether you're a mental health professional or simply interested in personal growth, Dr. van der Kolk's wisdom is incredibly valuable. So sit back and join us as we explore the transformative work of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk.
Thank you very much. Since we're you, well, what a great location, by the way. I'm a clinician scientist, so I'm not a theologian. In fact, I'm leery about theology. In that so much violence is done in the name of religion, even today in Mosul and everywhere around the world. So it's not really one of my favorite things. Contemplation, stillness, that's a different story. In that regard, how many people in this room practice yoga? Nice big crowd. How many people sing in choirs and stuff like that? Good. How many people make other sorts of music? Good. See, that's the beginning, huh? Because to deal with trauma, you have to move your body. You have to move your body in unison with other people. So seeing such a large crowd of people do that is very helpful, encouraging to me. And of course, that's been one of the tasks of religion since time immemorial, that when people are bereft and miserable, is to get them to move and to make movements that help them to regulate your body. And some of the things that I'll talk about, heart rate variability training and stuff like that, is common to all religions. Davening, moving, bending back and forth, activates the bodily systems that you need to re-establish a sense of ownership over your body. So this is a slide that I like to start with. It is a picture by a countryman of mine. I never got to meet him because he'd been dead 300 years by the time I was born, 400 years. Peter Bergel. It's a trauma picture. And it's a trauma picture about an adolescent. And this adolescent, his name was Icarus, was like every other adolescent. He wanted to spread his wings. And there not being any Harley Davidsons or methamphetamines lying around, he decided to shoot birds and to fly. And his mom said, don't do that, be careful. And as happens sometimes with wild adolescents, he plunged into the ocean. And aside from this painting, my favorite commentary on this is by the poet W.H. Auden, who saw this picture in the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Brussels in 1939 and said, about suffering, the ancients were never wrong. How it just passes by. The plowman saw an amazing thing. He saw a boy plunging from the sky. But there's a beautiful spring. And he went on, calming. People love to do that in academic circles. They just keep yakking, talking.
In this video, we'll explore some of Dr. van der Kolk's most groundbreaking theories and practical applications. A key concept he emphasizes is the mind-body connection, a critical component in understanding and healing trauma. Trauma is not just an event that occurs in the mind. It is an experience that is deeply embedded in the body. This connection explains why trauma survivors often experience physical symptoms alongside psychological distress. Dr. van der Kolk advocates for incorporating body-focused therapies, such as yoga and mindfulness, into treatment plans. These practices help individuals reconnect with their bodies, which is often disrupted by traumatic experiences. By becoming more attuned to bodily sensations, individuals can better manage their responses to stress and triggers, facilitating a more comprehensive healing process. This understanding is crucial, not just in clinical settings, but also in everyday life, as it empowers individuals to take control of their healing journey. Recognizing the body's role in storing and expressing trauma can lead to more effective coping strategies and overall well-being. Dr. van der Kolk's research has shown that trauma can alter the functioning of the brain and nervous system, leading to chronic states of hyperarousal or dissociation. By engaging in practices that promote bodily awareness, such as mindful breathing or movement therapies, individuals can begin to calm their nervous systems and create a sense of safety within their own bodies. This approach is particularly beneficial for those who have experienced complex trauma, where the trauma is ongoing or repeated over time, often in the context of interpersonal relationships. Dr. van der Kolk's work is not just significant for clinicians and therapists. It holds profound implications for anyone seeking to understand the intricate ways in which trauma can manifest and impact daily life. One of the most enlightening aspects of his research is the exploration of how trauma affects brain function. Through neuroimaging studies, Dr. van der Kolk and his colleagues have shown that trauma can lead to significant changes in brain areas responsible for emotional regulation, memory processing, and the stress response. For instance, the amygdala, which plays a crucial role in processing fear and threat, often becomes hyperactive in individuals who have experienced trauma. This heightened state of alertness can lead to chronic anxiety and hypervigilance, making it difficult for individuals to feel safe or relaxed.
This amazing, beautiful ship saw this boy plunging in the ocean, but had important things to do, so it sailed calmly on. And so many people like to talk about trauma. Our newspapers love it, CNN loves it, Fox News adores it. And the more trauma, the better, except the next day, people get forgotten. And then it takes a long time, and then sometimes people they get courage after a year or 2 or 30 to knock on the door of people like me and say, I am desperate, can you help me? So I think trauma has become a very inflated concept. Everything is called trauma these days. And I would just like to show you what trauma looks like. Trauma is an event that overwhelms mind and brain and destroys who you are. It's not like a bad thing. It's not like getting a bad grade, missing your MBTA, not your car falling down. No, it's about you will never be the same again. This is it. Bad stuff. And so the earliest movies that I've been able to get a hold of what trauma looks like is from the time that to me is sort of the ultimate tribute about what an insane species we are, the First World War. The First World War, to my mind, is sort of the epitome of how it sort of looks bad for us as human beings. Because usually we like to kill other people for an excuse, because they have slaves or because they're Shiites or some religious stuff. But in the First World War, people had the same religion, same blue eyes, same economy, and they just went at it. And 4 years and 50 million people later, they said, what the fuck did we do? But not very long, because 18 years later, the next war broke out. And people's bodies are stuck in trauma. Once you get traumatized, your body is different. Your talk is different also, your mind is different. But that's not the biggest thing, is you're filled up with impulses, sensations, feelings in your body that make you do things that you have no control over. Usually things that have to do with the trauma, where you usually suddenly lash out, or this guy is told the word bomb, and he hears the word bomb, he jumps under the bed. And the next guy sees a red hat, and the red hat makes him go, and he makes go crazy. And so it's about bodies that go crazy. I was trained in psychoanalysis, and I was trained as a verbal psychotherapist. And I love the power of language, and I love the power of people being able to tell their truth, being able to speak about what happened to you and finding resonance is one of the glories of being a human being, the purpose of psychotherapy, and it can be make an enormous change in people's minds and brains. Sadly, what my and other people's research showed is that talking about terrible things doesn't quite make it go away. And so I was in this awkward position of having written 2 books about traumatic stress and being considered one of the world's experts in traumatic stress back in 1994. But there was a little thing missing there, is I had no treatment chapters. You can be a great expert in something without having a treatment chapter. It's great. Because I didn't know how to treat it. Because I was trained as a verbal psychotherapist, and I could talk stories, and I could be empathic with my patients. And fundamentally, it didn't change. And then some people in my clinic started to do something really weird. They started to wiggle their fingers in front of people's eyes while people were remembering their trauma. And they were very enthusiastic about it. And I'm a young Harvard professor at the time, and I tell people, stop that immediately. We are a respectable group of people, and we are not do things like wiggling our fingers in front of people's eyes and stuff like that. They did it anyway. And they happened to be some of the most talented people I had working for me, for smart and wonderful people. And at some point they sent somebody to convert me, because it's all about religion. And they sent Steve Lazaroff to show me a movie. And I reluctantly watched his movie. And anybody who's ever heard me speak has seen this movie, because I show this movie all the time. This is my Paul on the way to Damascus movie. Captures the problem with treating traumatic stress. Namely, at the moment that people evoke it in their mind, they start going crazy. Their bodies start going out of control. Maybe you haven't seen it, so let me play it again. And so the moment that she calls it up into her mind, her shoulders go up, her breathing becomes tense, her butt sort of lifts halfway out of the chair, as she becomes like a frightened creature. And that's the problem with treating traumatic stress, is that the moment you go there, people become the traumatized people. And nobody really wants to go there. So everybody you know who's been traumatized, including you don't really want to talk about what happened. Because the moment you talk about it, you start freaking out and start feeling like it's happening again. And so
Dr. van der Kolk also highlights the critical role of community and social support in trauma recovery. Trauma can isolate individuals, making it challenging to connect with others. However, engaging in community activities such as group therapy, choir singing, or group exercises can provide a sense of belonging and shared experience. This communal involvement is vital, as it helps individuals realize they are not alone in their struggles. Dr. van der Kolk points out that these shared activities not only provide emotional support, but also help in reestablishing trust and interpersonal connections, which are often damaged by trauma. This aspect of recovery underscores the importance of fostering supportive environments where individuals feel safe to express themselves and share their experiences. Moreover, the communal aspect of healing can help in building resilience and creating a network of support that extends beyond the therapy sessions. This network can play a crucial role in preventing relapse and maintaining long-term recovery. The concept of social support is deeply embedded in many traditional healing practices around the world, where community rituals and collective activities are integral to the healing process. Dr. van der Kolk's work reminds us that healing does not occur in isolation. It is a collective journey that benefits from the support and understanding of others. This is particularly important in cultures where stigma around mental health issues can prevent individuals from seeking help. Creating inclusive spaces where people can come together and share their stories without judgment is a powerful tool in the healing process. Moreover, trauma can impair the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain involved in decision-making, impulse control, and rational thought. This impairment can result in difficulties with concentration, memory, and executive functioning, which are essential for navigating daily life. Understanding these changes at a neurological level helps explain why individuals with trauma histories may struggle with seemingly simple tasks or find themselves stuck in negative patterns of behavior. It also underscores the importance of incorporating brain-based therapies into treatment plans.
As therapists, we see these reactions in our patients, and seeing how distressed people become, we steer away from it. Because most therapists are not sadistic people, and they don't want people to really freak out. And so we talk about our childhoods and our mothers and about our terrible boyfriends and their schoolwork, and we talk about everything except the trauma, because we don't know how to deal with that. It's too much. And how bad it is nicely illustrated here. For those of you who are sort of body-oriented people, do you see her feet go up and down as if she's hitting a brake? The body relives this stuff.
Yeah. I thought that she was going to come to my wheelchair and that I was going to die. She?
So it's hard to think that doing this with the patient would be very helpful for them. It's very clear she becomes more and more agitated. And so most of us sort of verbal psychotherapists shy away from torturing our patients in this particular way. There's a treatment method that's widely promulgated through the VA these days, much to my horror, something called prolonged exposure treatment, where you expose people to their trauma like this over and over again. And indeed, in about half of the cases who get it, those who do not commit suicide or turn to drugs to deal with the overwhelming emotions, about half of them have about a 10% improvement in their PTSD. When the researcher has a 10% improvement, they say, wow, that's so great. We are statistically on the right track. 10% improvement is not good enough. And what exposure treatment does to people is nicely illustrated by, as I was writing my chapter about this stuff for my book last year, I went for a walk, and I saw a little 5-year-old kid on a tricycle whose dad was screaming at this kid. And I was freaked out seeing this huge guy brutalizing this kid. And much to amazement, this kid just riding his tricycle and was not upset by his dad at all. And I thought to myself, good, this kid has been desensitized to his father's brutality. Or as we call it in the attachment world, he is dealing without feeling. He has learned to cut off his emotions. You don't really want to hang out with people who have that particular way of coping with the world, who have learned to deal but not feel. I think people who run universities and people who run insurance companies may sometimes be people like that. But you really want to be with people who have a feeling of pain and hurt and sorrow and joy, and for whom all of that has not been cut off. So desensitization is obviously not a treatment for traumatic stress. And so here's another thing. As human beings, we tend to look for things that confirms how we look at the world. And we sort of continuously just push out stuff that doesn't fit with our preconception. And so therapists are very much into people's minds. And they are not much into bodies and organisms. But I'd like to invite you to just imitate the way that this person sits for a second. So she has her chair, her butt slightly lifted out of her chair. Her shoulders are sort of up like this. Now sit like this. And now say, boy, I really love being here today. That's how our patients sit. And as long as you sit like this, you're not capable of feeling joy, pleasure, openness to other people. And this whole dimension of the body determining what our mind can do is basically non-existent in therapy. And when you actually talk about it, you say, oh, he's this alternative person. Really? I'm just looking. Okay. So I'm irritated with Steve with wasting my time. And then he shows the next clip. The next clip is the same person after 2 sessions of his particular treatment. And this is before I do meditation, before I'm a body worker, before I do yoga. And yet, it's obvious that this person has gone through a dramatic change. And again, I would like to invite you to sit like this lady sits. Let me just demonstrate. Her hands are in her lap. She shows us her sternocleidomastoid muscle. It's a muscle of curiosity. And her shoulders are down and back. So can I just see that? See your shoulders go down and back. Lift your neck a little bit. And now say, I hate Dick Cheney. Even I can't hate Dick Cheney when I sit like that. Okay? Because when you hold your body in a certain position, you cannot do the hating thing.
Another critical aspect of Dr. van der Kolk's work is broadening the understanding of what constitutes trauma. Often the term trauma is associated with significant catastrophic events like natural disasters, war, or severe abuse. However, Dr. van der Kolk argues that trauma encompasses a much broader range of experiences, including chronic stress, neglect, and emotional abuse, which can be equally damaging. This broader definition is essential for recognizing the diverse ways in which trauma can manifest and affect individuals. By acknowledging these subtler forms of trauma, we can better address the needs of those who may not identify their experiences as traumatic in the traditional sense, but still suffer its effects. This expanded perspective helps in creating more inclusive and effective support systems. It encourages us to be more attentive and compassionate toward those who might be silently struggling with the aftermath of trauma. This understanding also has policy implications, advocating for more comprehensive mental health services that are equipped to handle a wide range of traumatic experiences. Dr. van der Kolk's work challenges us to rethink the way we approach trauma, not only in clinical settings, but also in educational, social, and community contexts. For example, understanding that childhood neglect or emotional abuse can have long-lasting effects on mental health emphasizes the need for supportive and trauma-informed practices in schools and child welfare systems. By broadening the definition of trauma, we can better identify and support those at risk, providing early intervention and prevention strategies. This approach also highlights the importance of public awareness campaigns that educate people about the various forms of trauma and the importance of seeking help. Dr. van der Kolk emphasizes that healing from trauma is not just about talking through experiences, but also involves rewiring the brain. Therapies like EMDR, neurofeedback, and somatic experiencing are designed to help individuals create new neural pathways, reducing the intensity of traumatic memories and restoring a sense of control over their lives. This neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, is a cornerstone of hope in trauma therapy. It suggests that, regardless of how deeply entrenched a traumatic response may be, there is potential for healing and growth. In his exploration of trauma treatment, Dr. van der Kolk discusses innovative therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing. This therapy involves guiding patients through eye movements while recalling traumatic events, helping to reprocess and integrate these memories in a less distressing way. EMDR has been particularly effective for those who struggle with traditional talk therapies, offering an alternative that addresses the physiological components of trauma. Dr. van der Kolk's advocacy for such therapies highlights the importance of a holistic approach that includes both mind and body. He emphasizes that effective trauma treatment must consider the full spectrum of an individual's experience, integrating physical, emotional, and psychological aspects. This holistic approach not only helps in treating the symptoms of trauma, but also addresses its root causes, promoting deeper healing. Furthermore, innovative therapies like EMDR provide new avenues for research and development in the field of trauma therapy, offering hope for more effective treatments in the future. Dr. van der Kolk's work with EMDR has shown that processing traumatic memories can significantly reduce symptoms of PTSD, such as flashbacks, nightmares, and intrusive thoughts. This success has led to the wider adoption of EMDR and similar therapies in clinical practice, highlighting the need for continued research and training in these methods. Additionally, Dr. van der Kolk's exploration of other body-based therapies, such as somatic experiencing and sensory integration, underscores the importance of addressing the body in trauma treatment. These therapies help individuals reconnect with their bodily sensations and develop a more integrated sense of self, which is often fragmented by traumatic experiences.
You cannot do the worry thing. And what's fascinating to me is how in our world of Western medicine, psychology, social work, and even religion, this is not a familiar posture. After my last visit to the Louvre last year, I decided not to go to the Louvre anymore. I am sick of guys with plumes on horses strutting along. And I'm much more sympathetic to Southeast Asian art, where people sit like that. It's not part of our traditions, also not very much part of our religious traditions. It's there. A few people sit out and they meditate. As it turns out, that this particular position is just about the only position through which you can change your brain. Which is sort of important if you are a traumatized person. Because unless you get into a deeply interoceptive mode, where you contemplate your internal experience, you cannot change your internal experience. So you can keep putting it out there and talk politics and talk about all these horrible people, but if you really want to change the way you feel, the way you organize your internal reality, you have to go inside. That means that you have to shut up. So, what has Steve done? Steve done this weird thing that I didn't get to research. It's mentioned here, actually. He says, no, EMDR is respectable. You know why it's respectable? Because I did the research. And so we went to NIMH, did the EMDR research, and what we showed actually is that EMDR turns out up to now the best treatment for a simple, relatively uncomplicated trauma like an assault or a rape. We had an 80% cure rate, which nobody's ever come close to. What's interesting, right now there is a study being done that seems to be, it's going to have probably similar outcomes as we had with EMDR. It comes from a different corner. It is MNDA research. It is research on ecstasy. That's not how most respectable people think about the world. I hear about this research and I say, yeah, makes perfect sense. I get to know the people, very good people. What do? They give people a drug that makes their brains very calm, open, and loving. And as they take those drugs, they start revisiting that wounded self. And they say, oh my God, that's me. Back then, I was beaten up, I was raped, and they develop compassion for themselves as it happened to them. That's very similar to what we do in EMDR and other things. You help people to be in a mindful, safe place where they can observe without getting hijacked what happened to them. And if you do that, you can integrate the experience and say, This happened to me a long time ago. It sucked, but it's over. Doesn't happen anymore. So those are the two treatments that I know for sure. Well, actually, I know one for sure, EMDR, and the other one looks very promising. That can have very profound capacities to help people to integrate the trauma. My hunch is that any treatment that can help people to feel deeply calm and self-observant can have those effects. The problem is that it's very hard to make people feel that calm and to safely observe themselves, because traumatized people are scared to death about what is going on inside. Because there's a misunderstanding that most of us start with. It took me years to figure out it was a misunderstanding. That people think that trauma is something that happens out there. It's a story of when you were little, or when you were in a concentration camp, or when you were raped, or when you were beaten. No, that is a story about something that happened a long time ago. The trauma is the wound that's inside of you. It's the fact that you continue to feel as if you're being raped. That you continue to feel as if right now you're being assaulted. The feeling that right now that you're in danger. So the issue with trauma is that you live in a body that is filled with the residues of the horror of the past. And in order to overcome the horror of the past, you have to cleanse your body. You have to free up your body and learn to own your body. So this is my first foray into that. Intrigued with that little muscle here. There's a muscle I look for in you guys. I'm curious who of you, and I have a very good eye for that, is curious about what I say, nod your head a little bit from time to time, is physically engaged with what I'm saying, and who sits back like my traumatized patients, like, you're trying to sell me a bill of goods. Because traumatized people always sit like this, like, don't you mess with me. Don't you even try to teach me anything new, because I know the world is a dangerous person, and you probably could hurt me too. So this attitude is what we see in our office most of the time. And the moment that my patients go like this, I go like, yeah, something is happening. It's all in the body. So I see this open person, and I'm surprised, because all he did is wiggle his fingers in front of people's eyes while they were remembering the trauma. They weren't even talking about it. And being a neuroscientist, I have some idea what happens there. We're actually doing a study right now to show that it has to do with the lateral eye fields of the frontal lobe and its connection with this 40 megahertz thalamocortical rhythms in the brain, but you don't want to hear about them. So, if as a clinician you know how to get your patients in 2 sessions from there to there, don't learn anything new. But if you don't, is it really ethical to continue to charge your patients? So what's trauma? For me, September 9/11 was a momentous moment, because trauma came home. I had been working with trauma all over the world, but now it came here. And I was very curious about my own reaction and the reactions of people all around us and of our nation. My own reaction was very similar to George Bush's reaction. Remember Fahrenheit 9/11? He was reading My Pet Goat upside down to a kindergarten class, and he was whispered in his ear, America is under attack, and he sat there dumbfounded for 18 minutes. I was also dumbfounded for 18 minutes. I thought, there's a little bit of George Bush in me also, which is always a good thing to realize. And so this issue of being dumbfounded was useful, because when you're overwhelmed, your mind goes offline and you don't feel anything. And then I was very intrigued with my response to Rudy Giuliani, who before that was not one of my favorite human beings since that time also, but that day he was fantastic. Because I was all befuddled and muddled and didn't know what's happening, and this guy was striding through the rubble and saying, this is happening, that's what's going on. And he gave me some cognition to help me to begin to make sense out of this vast morass of unknowing. So it's very helpful when you're really bereft to have somebody take over for you and say, I know what to do. So that was helpful. And
in addition to the physiological aspects of trauma, Dr. van der Kolk's work also delves into the psychological and social dimensions. He discusses how trauma can disrupt an individual's sense of identity and belonging, often leading to feelings of alienation and disconnection. This loss of identity can be particularly pronounced in cases of developmental trauma, where chronic neglect or abuse during childhood undermines the formation of a stable sense of self. Dr. van der Kolk advocates for therapeutic approaches that help individuals reconstruct their narratives, integrating traumatic experiences in a way that allows for a cohesive and empowered sense of identity. Therapists working with trauma survivors face unique challenges, as Dr. van der Kolk explains. One of the most significant challenges is managing the delicate balance between helping patients confront their traumatic memories and avoiding re-traumatization. This process requires therapists to be highly attuned to their patients' needs and responses, ensuring that the therapeutic environment is safe and supportive. Dr. van der Kolk emphasizes the importance of ongoing training and support for therapists to equip them with the skills necessary to handle these complex situations. He also highlights the need for therapists to practice self-care, as working with trauma can be emotionally taxing and requires resilience and self-awareness. Additionally, Dr. van der Kolk stresses the importance of collaboration among mental health professionals, as a multidisciplinary approach can offer more comprehensive care. This includes integrating insights from neurology, psychology, and alternative medicine to provide a well-rounded treatment plan that addresses all aspects of trauma. The challenge for therapists is not only in the treatment itself, but also in staying updated with the latest research and therapeutic techniques. The field of trauma therapy is continually evolving, and therapists must be committed to lifelong learning to provide the best possible care for their patients. This includes understanding new developments in neuroscience that reveal how trauma affects the brain and body, and how these insights can inform therapeutic practices. Furthermore, therapists must be aware of their own emotional responses and potential triggers when working with trauma survivors. This self-awareness is crucial for maintaining professional boundaries and preventing burnout. Dr. van der Kolk advocates for supervision and peer support as essential components of a therapist's professional development, providing a space to process challenging cases and emotions. Furthermore, Dr. van der Kolk explores the concept of intergenerational trauma, how the effects of trauma can be passed down from one generation to the next. This phenomenon is not only observed in families, but can also manifest in entire communities, particularly those that have experienced collective traumas such as war, colonization, or systemic discrimination. Understanding intergenerational trauma is crucial for developing interventions that address not only individual healing, but also communal and cultural restoration. Dr. van der Kolk's work encourages a broader view of healing that includes societal and historical contexts, recognizing that individual well-being is often intertwined with larger social and cultural factors. Beyond the therapy room, Dr. van der Kolk provides practical tips for individuals to integrate trauma-informed practices into their daily lives. He recommends mindfulness practices as a foundational tool for managing stress and enhancing emotional regulation. Techniques such as deep breathing, body scanning, and mindful movement can help individuals ground themselves and stay present, reducing the impact of traumatic triggers. Dr. van der Kolk also suggests journaling as a means of processing emotions and gaining insights into one's thoughts and feelings. Engaging in creative activities like painting, music, or dance can also be therapeutic, providing a healthy outlet for expressing emotions and fostering a sense of joy and creativity. These practices empower individuals to take an active role in their healing journey, helping them build resilience and a more positive outlook on life. Moreover, Dr. van der Kolk emphasizes the importance of self-compassion and patience, as healing from trauma is a gradual process that requires time and consistent effort. He encourages individuals to listen to their bodies and respect their own pace in the healing journey. This includes recognizing and honoring the body's signals, such as tension, fatigue, or pain, which can indicate when it is time to rest or seek support. Additionally, Dr. van der Kolk highlights the value of establishing a routine, which can provide a sense of stability and predictability in daily life. Simple practices like setting aside time for relaxation, connecting with loved ones, and engaging in hobbies can contribute to overall well-being and help mitigate the effects of stress and trauma. He also advises individuals to seek out supportive communities, whether through group therapy, support groups, or online forums, where they can share their experiences and learn from others who have faced similar challenges.
Then we saw all these pictures. And again, when I show these pictures to therapists, and they say, what do you see here? They say, I see panicked people. I say, maybe. I see terrified people. I don't. What do you see? You see people who are running. But as most of us who jump over that in order to go into our ideology of the world. But so the first thing we do when we get traumatized is to run, is to flee and to flight, and our bodies do something. And if our bodies do something that works, we don't get traumatized. So it's a physical response, and this response is about the body organizing itself. And then, because I've written all these books that makes you an immediate expert on the subject, whether what is in the book is true or not, doesn't matter, I got invited to a whole bunch of so-called expert panels. And I still have a very fresh memory, because in August 2011, I had started to explore my book that is now finished, The Body Keeps the Score, and I'd started to really explore the issues of the body very seriously. And in August 2011, I took a course on improv. Anybody here has ever done improv? I can't recommend it highly enough. It's great. It's fun. It's fantastic. So I take this improv course, and we're messing with each other and moving, and at some point we're rolling over each other, and at some point some fairly heavy-set woman is lying draped across me, turns around and says, "Isn't this great? I used to be a patient in and out of McLean Hospital, but ever since I've been doing these improv exercises, I'm off my medications and I'm doing fine." And I say, that's sort of great, but you're getting a little heavy for me. Could you please get off me? But I remember that beaming face as she is telling me about the glories of improv, as I'm sitting on my expert panel, advising the nation about what the best treatments are. And I say to my colleagues, we shouldn't pretend like we know more than we do. Maybe we should let anybody who has a good plan, can describe their method, is able to do outcome measures, to come and do their stuff and pay them for it. But pay them not till 6 months later, till they collect the outcome data, because this is a glorious time to learn about something that works. So I'm on 3 different panels, and all 3 of them I got totally outvoted. In fact, I'm the only person who says that. And at the end, there are 2 treatments that are being recommended, one of which is psychoanalysis. No laughter. Why psychoanalysis? Because aside from the Daniel Center, Manhattan is the last bastion of Freudian psychoanalysis. And this is a political issue. And when you intervene in a particular community, you can not offend the local religion or orientation of the local community. Makes perfect sense. The other thing that gets recommended is CBT. Do we have evidence for CBT under those conditions? No, not really. But every academic believes in these little manuals where you turn a page, you do that, because that's science. And so you cannot offend them either. So those are the 2 things that are being recommended. And it turns out that these people are waiting for all the victims of 9/11 to come to the psychoanalysts and the CBT people, and nobody shows up. And so a colleague of mine, Spencer Eth, who used to run the psychiatry department at St. Vincent's, right about the World Trade Center, does a survey of 225 patients at St. Vincent's who escaped from the World Trade Center that day. And he says, what was most helpful to you to overcome what happened that day? What people say, number 1, was acupuncture. Nobody knows what acupuncture does, how it works, whether it's helpful for PTSD. But these stupid New Yorkers say that that acupuncture is useful for them. Well, we're the experts, so we can tell them that they're wrong. Second piece was massages. I can get into that. That's third thing was yoga. Bizarre, twisting yourself into a pretzel, standing on one foot, like treatment for PTSD. These people are crazy. Number 4, EMDR. Those were the 4 things that New Yorkers said was helpful. Totally different from what us experts had recommended. So that was interesting. And then in one of these panels, one of my colleagues, Sandra Galea, shows this particular picture.
Another critical aspect of Dr. van der Kolk's work is his exploration of the body's role in trauma and healing. He emphasizes that trauma is not only stored in the mind, but also in the body, a concept known as somatic memory. This idea is foundational to therapies like somatic experiencing, which focus on helping individuals release physical tension and trapped energy associated with traumatic memories. Techniques such as body scanning, progressive muscle relaxation, and mindful movement are employed to help individuals become more aware of their physical sensations and learn to regulate them. This bodily awareness is vital for processing and integrating trauma, as it allows individuals to reconnect with their bodies and restore a sense of safety and presence. As we conclude, it's clear that Dr. van der Kolk's work has profoundly impacted the field of trauma therapy. His pioneering research and clinical practice have laid the groundwork for a more nuanced understanding of trauma and its multifaceted nature. Looking to the future, the field of trauma therapy is poised to continue evolving, integrating new research findings and therapeutic techniques. Dr. van der Kolk's legacy will continue to inspire practitioners to explore diverse treatment modalities, ensuring that therapy addresses the complete spectrum of trauma's impact on the mind and body. As we move forward, the commitment to trauma-informed care remains crucial. This approach not only acknowledges the complexity of trauma, but also provides a compassionate framework for supporting individuals on their healing journeys. By continuing to build on Dr. van der Kolk's work, we can create more inclusive and effective mental health care systems that honor the resilience and potential of every individual. This comprehensive approach will be vital in addressing both current and future challenges in mental health care, paving the way for a more empathetic and understanding society. Furthermore, the integration of trauma-informed care across various sectors, including education, criminal justice, and healthcare, is essential for addressing the widespread impact of trauma. Dr. van der Kolk's work underscores the importance of training professionals in these fields to recognize and respond to trauma appropriately, reducing re-traumatization, and supporting healing. As research continues to uncover the long-term effects of trauma on physical health, including its links to chronic illnesses and reduced life expectancy, the need for comprehensive trauma-informed healthcare becomes even more evident. Dr. van der Kolk's contributions have set the stage for a broader cultural shift towards recognizing and addressing trauma at all levels of society. This shift will involve not only healthcare providers and therapists, but also policymakers, educators, and community leaders. By fostering a culture of understanding and compassion, we can support trauma survivors in their journey towards recovery and resilience. Dr. van der Kolk's emphasis on body-based therapies also highlights the limitations of traditional talk therapy for addressing trauma. While verbal processing is an important component of healing, it is often insufficient on its own, especially for those who have difficulty articulating their experiences or who have become disconnected from their bodily sensations. Integrating body-based approaches can provide a more holistic treatment, addressing both the psychological and physiological aspects of trauma. In addition to his clinical work, Dr. van der Kolk is a strong advocate for trauma-informed care across various sectors, including education, healthcare, and social services. Trauma-informed care involves understanding and responding to the effects of trauma in all aspects of service delivery, ensuring that individuals are not re-traumatized by the systems meant to help them. This approach is crucial for creating environments that are safe, supportive, and conducive to healing.